I'm Ruben Nepales for Rappler, and I have with me today Ronnie del Carmen. Ronnie, I saw the film at the recent Cannes Film Festival, and it was a treat to hear your voice in Cannes and in a film that was the closing night movie of the festival. Congratulations.
Oh, thank you very much. I'm so proud of it that it is the closing movie in Cannes. I wish I was there. It was fantastic to see people receive it, and there was a standing ovation, if I read correctly.
Yes. So let's start with the basics. How did you land the role, Ronnie?
Well, I'm good friends with Pete Sohn. He was making the movie while I was still there at the studio, and we help each other all the time with our individual movies. So he asked me to do the role casually in the early reels of the movie when they were just starting out, and I would say, whatever you need, I'll do it. You go and hire whoever you want to when you have to cast the actor. But the whole time Pete Son was saying, Ronnie, I really like your voice in the reels. That's good, Pete, but you hire whoever is good for your movie. And then eventually one day I got a call from Pixar and says, Ronnie, you got it. Got the role. What are we talking about? Bernie, cast me in it. Right.
You've done voice acting before, but this is your first major role as a voice actor. Please comment on that. And did you ever imagine that you would voice a major character in a Disney and Pixar movie someday?
No, it was never one of those aspirations. You know, Ruben, I grew up wanting to be an artist. I'm always the behind the scene. You would never see or hear me in the movie. But I have done little voice acting in the movies at Pixar, a dialogue, a line of dialogue here, a line of dialogue there. And you can see my name credit crawl up, but not a major character in the movie. And this is a landmark moment for me. It's really earth shattering. Not only that, but I'm so proud to be part of a Pete Sohn story because he's a good friend of mine, and it's such a heartfelt family movie too. And I get to play someone I feel like I'm very close to. He's a dad, so I it's fantastic.
I almost did not recognize your voice. And that's a compliment to you because you really embodied the character of Bernie. How did you arrive at the voice and manner of speaking of Bernie? And how did Pete guide you with his own ideas about how Bernie sounds like?
Well, Pete actually made it very easy for me to play Bernie because he just says, "Be who you want to be." And just make sure that you can relate to your daughter in all of these moments and lines that I have to speak. So I didn't have to turn myself into someone else, but I did have to turn into what Bernie is, and that is that a father who has a daughter in Ember and almost having to kind of bequeath the store to her. So there's a certain aspect of his personality that has to enter in my voice, and that's as much of it that I had to do. And I'm so glad actually you can't quite recognize my voice in it because even my wife can't quite recognize my voice in it.
And I'm now going to quote from a review of Elemental by Jordan Mintzer of The Hollywood Reporter. And I quote, by far the most moving element in Elemental is the character of Bernie, a hardworking foreigner doing everything he can to support his family in the big city, breaking his back in his modest mini mart, while striving to preserve some of the traditions of his homeland. So, congratulations on that quote, Ronnie. Congratulations.
Wow. Please send me that quote. That is amazing. That is so close to my own story. That's fascinating. That's quite an honor.
And are you a fire element or a water element? You can guess from what I'm wearing that today that I identify with Bernie, although I am a Gemini, so I can actually be both fire and water at the same time.
No, it's like, oh, well, I don't know. If you're going by the astrological signs, I'm Capricorn, which means I'm a water sign, I think, right? So, but I wear fiery colors today. native fabrics from the Philippines, hand woven. So, but very, very flame, flame colors.
And with a fire element like Bernie, how do you relate to him? How passionate can you be about the people and things you care for? And how temperamental are you?
I am very passionate about my family, and I am known to my friends as being someone who's very calm and also um, very low key. But my family will be able to tell you, and some of my friends will be able to tell you, I have a temper that not too many people see all the time. But the few people who have seen it, my close friends, and of course my family have seen it, it's like they don't like seeing it.
And the idea of whether water and fire could connect or not was inspired by Peterson's growing up years in New York as a son of immigrants. A scene shows your character and his family getting off the boat to start their lives in a new place. How do you relate to that story?
I can relate very easily to that. My family had migrated here to the US from the Philippines. We were looking for a better life. And not only that, there was so much that's unknown. You don't know what you're going to do, if you're going to be accepted, and that if you have one thing that you know how to do, will you be successful at it? And all of those things were uncertain. I gave myself like a year here in the US to see if I could make it. And if not, I will have to admit that I failed. But thankfully, the country actually gave me a career. I landed in animation. And that's really amazing to me because through animation, I got to express myself as an artist. But here we are talking about a role wherein I get to play Bernie, whose story is very similar to mine. And I get to do it in an animated feature. That's like the grand slam of dreams come true.
And you mentioned that you actually did voice performances in other films, but can you go backtrack and at least go through three films that you did voice in? Soul, Inside Out, and Traces. So if you could just briefly describe your experiences in those.
Well, I've done scratch for all of those things, but then a lot of the times I get replaced by actors. But in Inside Out, I get to be one of the characters inside Riley's mind, and I get to say one line there. When it's like the line is loneliness. You can find that in the reels, and that would be it. And in other movies, which I have very faint memories of, I think I was in um, Up, but I'm not sure now. Don't talk to an old man whose memories are fading.
As a director and animation artist, you have seen talents record their scenes in animated movies. Which voice recording sessions with actors or artists were very memorable to you?
Well, the most recent ones. Well, for me, it's Ed Asner as Carl, and Amy Poehler as Joy, Bill Hader as Fear. Those guys, they were just amazing to work with. I mean, amongst all the other ones, of course, that I can't name because all of them are very special to us because all of those voice actors, those amazing talents, actually gave them their life, their voices. When Amy Poehler speaks the lines for Joy, she becomes Joy for us. I can't hear anyone else other than like, well, that's Joy. And Bill Hader had actually done so many voices to help us out when we were making Inside Out. He kind of did the treadmill workout of exercising almost every emotion that we were trying out. And but he was definitely perfect to be the voice of Fear.
And following up on that, what do you consider are among the most memorable voice acting performances in animation films?
Um, to me, in animation film, to me, it was like Robin Williams as the genie. He kind of ran away with that movie. It's as a feat that feels like it was so natural for him. that it obliterated any other version of what you might think what a genie might be, other than right now for me, it's like Robin Williams is it.
And in your growing up years, did you ever work in a store or a shop like Bernie? And what were you like?
Well, I helped out in some of my uncles and aunts' sari store. I was a kid, and every now and then, you kind of like have to go to the back room and bring some things towards, the front, and you have to hand out, correct change for people who buy stuff. I was so little that I was like 14 or 15, and it was fun because as a kid, when you go to a sari store, you go there to buy stuff, candy, soda, and fun stuff, even school supplies. But you get to be on the other side. It's kind of like a position of power, right? So, and you're a kid, you get someone wants to buy something, you have some control over for that little transaction, getting stuff for them and then getting their money and giving them change. It's kind of a powerful position.
And I'm really amazed by your voice performance in this, but which got me to wondering, in real life, do you sometimes change voices or maybe experiment with different kinds of voices?
Yes, yes, I do this all the time. Having kids, I get to be a storyteller, and then also I do all the kind of mini jokes and gags at home. And being in animation, you can't help it because every one of us in animation tend to do voices when we're acting and reacting and workshopping scenes between each other. So we have to turn into so many different characters just to try out when we're writing things and when we're creating things. So it's very normal for us to actually act with our voices and our bodies when you're making animation. So it's fantastic.
And for my last question, can you give an update on your coming projects? What's next for you?
Well, I'm personally, I have like many stories that I wanted to tell. So I'm developing as many of those as I can. And development is a very long process. So, and unfortunately, I can't talk about them. But I've been trying to actually get out stories that matter to me, stories that are actually about my own growing up years and the culture I come from. And I want to be one of those lucky few people who can make movies that are stories that are about what is valuable to them, to me. It's not one of those things where you get assigned to a movie or someone picks you to do this story or that story. I'm developing the stories that matter to me, and I hope to one day be given the chance to make that movie, and then people get to watch it.
Thank you, Ronnie, for being that, for being our voice, for representing our stories, our culture, and identity. And on that note, thank you very much for
Yeah,
joining me here with Rappler.
awesome. Thank you, Ruben.